I'm Prash from Zopa.ai, and I'll be moderating today's session on hiring at scale with AI. I'm pleased to introduce my distinguished panelists. From my right to left, Dhilip Kumar Raju, Head of Staffing, APAC at TCS; Olivia Tong, Group HR Center of Excellence Director at Advanced Intelligence Group; and to my far right, Angelina Chua, Group CHRO, ComfortDelGro. To kickstart today's discussion, I'd like to draw upon our panelists' extensive experience with reference to recruitment strategies and processes, discuss about some of the platforms or tools that use AI that can help streamline the process, provide automation, and productivity benefits. 52% of talent acquisition leaders say that the hardest part of recruitment is screening candidates from a large applicant pool. And I'm sure many of you sitting in this room today would resonate with this. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are many more challenging elements when it comes to volume hiring. With that, I'd like some of our panelists to share what are some of the low hanging fruits where you feel AI can help with the overall recruitment process, either from your experience or tools and technologies that you're using at your current organization?
So maybe I can go first. Thank you and good afternoon. Wonderful to see all of you. I think it's been years since we met together like this. This morning, when I was getting all dressed, I was telling my wife, she was asking me why you're wearing a tie. Then I said, I wanted to. The last time I wore this was 2 years back, and I need to do that today. So that's how the morning started. And ever since, it's been such wonderful sessions today. Thank you, Prashant, for that question. See, we've all done this in the last 2 years. We have hired, we have retained, we have deployed, and we've also transformed talent remotely. This isn't something new that we've done in the last 2 years. We've done this. Our MBA schools did not teach us this, but we adopted and we did this. Now, where are we going from here? We have hired candidates who have never set foot into our offices so far. The graduates that I've hired have not been to our offices so far. They're working remotely. On the other hand, the parents are happy that they've got their time, their flexible time to be with their children and also manage work. The great resignation, ultimate rebound, and all the mobility drama around it, we've seen it all. So where are we going here? From here, where are we moving on? And how can AI help? Few things, low-hanging fruits that AI has helped me in this last 2 years. The first is a very efficient applicant tracking system and also a very active chatbot. We've deployed something called Rexa. It might sound trivial, basic, but imagine if the number of queries that your recruiter is taking is coming down by 10x. That's productivity improvement for me. That's number one priority. And two, in terms of using AI for market intel. Today, when a requirement is passed on to a recruiter, it takes about 14 days for us to take a decision whether or not can we do this in this country, do I have to pass it on to somebody else? But if this market intel is available to us at a click of a button, I think that's what we're talking about in terms of having a very agile talent acquisition ecosystem. It also just doesn't stop there for us. If we have made this analysis and our market intel says that this skill is not going to be possible in, let's say, country A, that also becomes an input for my talent development team. So we're sort of looking at using this for a very collaborative, consolidated staffing approach and not operating in silos. So these are important. But the most important factor for me today is sitting in Singapore. I'm hiring people in Vietnam, Myanmar, Cambodia, Bhutan, you name it, we do that today. And each of these countries have a very complex data privacy nuance to it. If I can get AI to do a matrix that tells me this is what you need to ask a candidate in any of these countries, it saves a lot of time for my recruiters. Today, they have a checklist. They need to go through it to see what can I ask, what I cannot ask in China, what can I ask in Singapore. What if all of this is taken care with a very intelligent AI system? I think that will make my life simple.
Wow, that's very comprehensive. Thanks so much for the sharing and thank you for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. So for me, the low-hanging fruits, very first answer in my mind being HR practitioner that can really make our life much easier and make our work much more effective, save a lot of time from all the recruiters, from all the HR practitioners. On the other side, for the business, I really hope that we can aim higher because this will change the entire landscape. I hope that make our business more predictable will also be considered as most essential things, maybe not exactly low-hanging fruit, but that's important for us, for all the business decision makers.
Yeah, thanks to the panelists for sharing. Again, thanks to Yasmin and team for organizing such an exciting topic right after lunch, because we are all suffering from, at least for me, a little bit of food coma with all the good food. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about AI and how it can help. If you have attended the earlier panel, which has shared a little on the talent acquisition piece and the pressure that the people and culture team are facing today, AI can definitely help us to shorten some of these screening and filtering process. But more importantly, I think the part that is so valuable is that for us to have a dedicated person to do the entry. It used to be 45 minutes into the HRS, and then we shortcut it to 20 minutes with an automated RPA process. But today with ATS, I think we just pop whatever data that the applicants, complete, and then we port it over to the HRS. I think that is to us a very huge load off whoever who is doing the data entry. More importantly, I think if you use the video interview technology and the AI that comes out from it will benefit us from having another first round of filtering through video, either through Zoom or Teams, so that can actually be recorded and give you some insights that is going to also help to save some time. So I think in the war for talent today, shortening the processes as well as giving us a quicker turnaround is absolutely key.
Thank you so much for sharing. It is indeed interesting to see how it's possible to automate rote functionalities, increase productivity and efficiency with the use of AI at various stages of hiring process. We heard a little bit on resume screening. We heard chatbots with engaging students. While there are many upsides of AI and elements where AI can help the entire process, any AI needs data. A model needs to be trained, retrained with new data, and there are many other elements to ensure that the AI is actually functioning properly, accurately, and to your desired satisfaction. Now, aside from where AI can help, there is also the element of change management within an organization when such new technologies are brought in, be it an AI, be it a new applicant tracking system, a new form of chatbots. It would be good to understand how is it like managing this change within the HR team? Do recruiters feel that the AI would replace their jobs, or are they actually receptive to the fact that the AI could positively impact their productivity?
To me, the most important person in my team today is my recruiter, right? They are the talent magicians and they can do their jobs better if you had the right tools for them, which is the magic wand. So, in my view, if you didn't have something in place to do something extraordinary like this, you're going to lose them. And you don't want that to happen. So, the interesting way of doing this is we are retiring our old ATS and our in house recruitment system. We are moving to something that's available in the market, for instance. So what we've done in this process is we've got the recruiters to be part of our design thinking process. I think that's more important because they understand the challenges. The first step was to run an entire storyline to say, what is it that we need to change? And the key stakeholder in that design thinking process was the recruiter. But of course, it's not just the recruiter. You have the business, you have your talent development team, your talent transformation teams. But what we decided to do is keep the recruiter at the center of it, and they brought the rest of the team members along to be on board in this process. And how we sold this is the entire change management process is by saying that by doing this, how your recruiter productivity is going to go up. And if that goes up, how does that lead to a better recruiter productivity linked incentives? And we also tied it up to get the business buy-in for the entire change management plan to say how your quality of hire is going to go up. What is your TAT looking like today? Are you going to make some bit of a progress in your entire turnaround time? And how does your cost per hire looks like? So we sort of bifurcated what is required for each of these segments. And the most important piece here was a recruiter who was trying to sell this for us to the business. So it isn't about, am I worried about losing my job? I think it was more about empowering them to be part of the whole design process.
For us, because Advanced Intelligence Group, we still consider ourselves a startup. We're hiring like crazy. And we also want to improve the result by using more data we can accumulate. In the past few years, we constantly invest in HR systems. But like Prashant said, change management is always a pain point because although you have all the system, my HR colleagues, my business manager, they still prefer to use Google Suites, they prefer to use Excel. Then I have two different sets of data. So I'm really driving everyone. Okay, please forget about Excel. You have system, trust system. But the quality of all this system, the design, the logic between all this system and how capable this system can speak into each other become extremely crucial for us. On the other side, I remember, I think that's a good news for everyone. I remember yesterday reading an article saying that MOM, they just communicated about the number of jobs. These few past years, we are having a lot of investment in the entire AI and machine learning area. But interestingly, Singapore is having more and more jobs. So data proves that AI is creating more jobs for the entire country, and I trust it's doing the same thing for the entire world. So for our recruiters, I don't think they will be concerned. I'm not concerned. I'm happy that AI can help us to do those things non-essential, but sometimes really drives us crazy. And moving forward, if we really can find the right tool, our people will be focusing on people-centric matters. They will feel more valuable. They will have more time to connect, to interact with all these potential candidates, and they know who are the key candidates, potentially will survive longer, potentially can bring more result to the organization. So I think for our organization, we are really fully ready to embrace the coming of AI and machine learning, and we are really happy that we're going to do more important jobs as human beings.
I think for this change management is always not an easy subject. You need to be able to have pushback against especially the business leader, because every time you put out a paper to say that, oh, okay, we are going to upgrade ourselves, we're going to invest so much in the technology X dollar, the minute the leadership team, they hear this, they are happy, and they ask you, okay, good, how many headcount are you going to reduce, or are you going to cut? So I think it's that pushback on that, because nobody in the right frame of mind at this moment will tell you that I'm happy to let go 10 people, because with every one whom you let go, you're having difficulty to recruit, and the new people whom you bring on board are going to cost you more than the people who have been with you. So I think that transition to the new technology is important, of course, but we also have to think about the communication strategy on why do you want to do this, what you're going to do with your existing people. And you have to also explain to the team, okay, because people don't forget that we have a lot of, for at least for our side, we have a multi generations, we have across 5 generations working in the same organization. Some of these people who have been with you 30, 40 years, and you tell them, okay, you're bringing this technology. Firstly, there is a fear factor. They don't know how this is going to affect them, right? And how are they going to do their job? Because they're so used to doing the same thing, day in, day out. So the communication, the assurance has to be there. Secondly, when you look at the new technology, how is it going to help them? Because you tell them that this technology is going to replace you, it's not going to work. They're going to press the panic button right away. So what you need to do is to tell them that, okay, how is this going to help you? For example, we say that, okay, in a day, right, you have 8 hours. Maximum give you, if you do an hour interview, 7 candidates that you can interview. But with this technology that you bring in, how much time can you save? And then once you identify this saving, right, then what are you going to do with the time? How are you going to occupy them to do higher value job? So I guess the whole ecosystem and the whole value chain from end to end talent acquisition is important. And when you just bring on board the technology, that is one portion, but the mapping of the HR processes from the current to the new, I think that's absolutely important, and right down to each individual, how does it affect them, and how are we going to convince them that this is indeed a better solution than what they are doing. I guess that is for me very, very key in ensuring, in making sure that every team member understands what kind of impact this brings to them, and in turn, what kind of impact will their new job look like, and what can it bring to the organization. So it's the entire ecosystem and value chain that is important.
Definitely, it does take 2 hands to clap. The tools that you use, and equally the recruiter's standpoint. The data that comprises of these tools, and Angelina, as you very well articulated, the communication, the way in which these tools are being presented to the recruiters, what can it do to benefit them? Is there a time savings element? Is there a cost savings element? How much are we able to move that needle on some of the metrics that matter the most to these recruiters? Now, recruiters make a great deal of decisions, who to shortlist, who to interview, so on. And there is always an element of unconscious bias, heuristic bias, and so on that can creep into the process. 79% of HR professionals agree that unconscious bias exists in both recruitment and succession planning decisions. So I'd like to get some insight, given that recruitment is a very human, people driven process. What's your take on unconscious biases creeping into the process? And in today's day and age where there's a lot of emphasis on diversity and inclusion, equitable hiring, and so on, would AI be able to help in this manner?
Thanks, Prashant. I think unconscious bias is very notorious, if I can define it. As much as you want to try and alleviate and remove it, it creeps into it. It's like a parasite. And we all do a lot of programs around it. We try and train the hiring managers, the recruiters, because it's not just a recruiter, the entire value chain should be free of bias. You have face to face interviews, you have video interviews, you have tools that are available in the market, you have psychometric assessments that can still give you a better view and judgment of whom you're trying to evaluate and assess. But still, this would creep in. And how is it that you can probably try and avoid this? Is we try and speak to our recruiters and those who bring new talent into our organization to ensure that you hire for a job description, for a position, you hire for the organization, and it is not always the role. Do you see a culture fit for this person within the company? And is that how you evaluate every roles that you hire for? That's something that I personally talk to when I speak to my recruitment team. And also, are you trying to create an environment for them to be ready for your interview process? This is a candidate who's probably talking to 4 or 5 employers. As a recruiter, how are you making this process simple and at the same time make it easy and pleasurable for them? So we started doing few things here. For the leadership roles that I hire today, anything that's, let's say, a partner equivalent kind of a role, I try and enable a couple of peer connects for them. Talk to similar players from other geographies so that in the process, I also collect feedback from some of these partners and I remove my bias out of it, right? Even if there is any unconscious bias there. We also try and put up an entire recruitment process manual for anybody who's trying to apply for us. That way, you know what are the kind of resources that you need to look into, what is available in our portal for you to read and be available for the interview process. Now, why is this related to bias? Even if the recruiter feels that he or she or they are not going to fit this role based on just my preliminary assessment, but you would still want to give them a choice to be part of the process and use some of your tools. And many a times you will see that those talent also make the cut and move forward. So in my view, while you have psychometric assessments and video assessments and tools that can remove this to a great extent, I think if you start providing recruitment support in terms of enabling the candidate to come and take the interview process in the way it should be, a lot of times this can just get eliminated. That's my view.
Thanks, Prashant. I'm thinking about unconscious bias. We just had some sessions with all the hiring manager in the organization because these managers, they grow with the entire startup organization and we developed so fast. They have their way of thinking. We also realized that at the point we reached 2,000 employees, that's the current headcount for our organization. After we expanded into 17 different markets in this world, it's the time to openly talk about this. It's the time to give that awareness to everyone. Otherwise, we cannot really meet our mission statement. We cannot really serve the entire world with our very good AI products and fintech products. So the cure for me is not only about all this training, no matter how frequently you're going to tell these people, because that's human being, that's human nature. You have unconscious bias, everyone has that. The thing is how we are going to introduce a process, some policy, and then we're going to evaluate the result. And I definitely think that AI technology is in the position to help everyone to do that. On the other side, I'm actually thinking about how we are going to also introduce those conscious bias because we have our standards with our talent. We want to hire people with growth mindset. We want to have people with open mindset. We want people to accept, yes, yeah, now I realize that I have my own limitation. I need to break through my own little books. How I'm going to do that, how I'm going to survive in a startup organization. So I'm thinking if AI can help us to address that, get people meet our talent criteria, find us all these people potentially has the DNA in a fintech startup organization, we will be very happy.
I think unconscious bias is something that is so difficult, to train people about because no matter how you try to train people and educate people, it still does exist. It's a matter of degree of, big, more or less. So I think we need to put in place, as Olivia said, right, into our processes. For example, we do have a job profiling tool that try to match the profile through a series of things that the candidate would input, and will give their assessments. So that is one thing that we can do, because through job profiling, and then it's kind of like you take away the human aspect from it. But at the same time, there are also other matrices that you need to put in place. For example, board diversity, leadership diversity. You need to be very intentional about it, to say that, okay, for example, you have a DEI policy, and how do you measure its success? For example, you need to say that, okay, for 30% are female leaders, let's say. So that sort of matrix is going to help you to put some pressure, or at least push you to move towards that. Which otherwise, if you leave it free and easy, then it will be free and easy. So I think sometimes we just have to be intentional about it and put in place different things that is going to help us at least try our very best to eliminate that unconscious bias. But it is indeed a very challenging task.
Prashant, on the diversity part that you touched upon, you and I, we have a playbook, right? So we are told this is how the society functions and this is what you do. So I largely believe that most of the ATSs that we see today is designed for what the society perceives as normal. But we have completely ignored maybe 15-20% of our population who are neurodiverse. Is my applicant tracking system today, is my ATS and all my associated tools, anything that I do with AI, is it also supporting the other sections of the society that we should not be really looking out for, right? So I'm thinking that probably in future we will make more amends to it, and we've started making some baby steps, looking at the autism spectrum to hire, or working with destitute women or ex-prisoners. Now these are all baby steps, but if you ask me, do I have a psychometric assessment test or a online test today that can be put to somebody from the spectrum? No. I have a one size fits all online coding test. Now, can I move forward and make some changes there to remove that bit of bias that I have? That's for the future to answer.
Really interesting to hear the different perspectives on bias. And at the end of the day, the AI is only able to do what we teach it to do, what we train it to do. If the training data set is naturally going to be contaminated with these human biases, heuristic biases, and so on, then naturally there's going to be an issue with the AI. The kind of inputs, the kind of outputs that it's showcasing will naturally be biased as well. However, if models are trained objectively, keeping in mind the use of ethical AI, responsible AI, and the like, likely the inputs potentially may be without any heuristic bias. Now, thus far, we have spoken a lot about how AI can help recruiters' life. In terms of screening, we spoke about automation, productivity benefits, chatbots, and a little bit about heuristic bias and, on the AI itself. But moving a little away from the recruiter's standpoint, because at the end of the day, a lot of us also believe in the candidate experience. What is that journey looking like from a candidate standpoint when they apply to a particular organization? So touching a little bit from the candidate's viewpoint, would the AI potentially add value? Would it make it easy from a candidate's experience standpoint? Would be curious to hear on that.
So I'm sure it would. So let's take a step back and see, why is somebody looking for a job? They probably want to advance in their career. They're looking for better monetary benefits, or they're trying to future forward, future proof their career and say, this is where I want to be. Probably this organization has that option for me. To me, if these questions can be answered at the very first discussion that a recruiter has, then I have a very successful recruit there. Am I able to give the big picture and the first few connects that this is where your career footprint is going to in this organization? You're going to join us as a senior developer in my line of industry, if I take that. And how do you progress to become an architect? And what is it that we can give you in 3 or 4 years from now? There are things that we can have conversations around beyond benefits. Now, those today, for a large extent, the Rexa bot that I was talking about earlier is able to answer such queries. Even if there is no proactive questioning from the candidate, the AI tool that we have is sort of nudging these conversations to say that, hey, you're applying for this role. Did you know, do you want to talk to somebody who's done similar roles in the organization in the past? Or we've got few people who have joined us from similar organizations. Do you want to talk to your alumni? Now, those are questions I think will make a difference from a candidate point of view, not just a simple ATS where I was talking to Prashant earlier. A good ATS for me is where the candidate applies for a job in just 5 clicks. Nothing complicated there, hassle-free, 5 clicks, I'm done, and I need to have a call with the recruiter. But what if we had something more to it? You had these alumni connects, you have people who have done similar roles. You get a view of how your career progresses so that you're not lost in a place as big as TCS, we have 600,000 people. So these are smaller steps that definitely goes a long way in keeping us connected with the talent in market.
Slightly different view. So yesterday I was at Atomi's business meeting. Atomi, we know it's one of the products of, or one of the business line of advanced intelligence. In Atomi, we do buy now, pay later. So our product team shared this example. We were listening to a recording. Can you tell me whether you are a robot? I'm your virtual assistant. Can you please tell me whether you are a robot? But the machine keeps saying, I'm your virtual assistant. But today's AI technology is so awesome. We cannot tell that's a robot's voice or that's a true human being's voice. And we start to discuss, okay, how we are going to improve our customer's experience. You want that person to know this is a robot. So that person will adjust the expectation. Otherwise, you will hear this kind of very funny conversation. So the same, I trust our candidate. One thing all the HR practitioners, we all align, we want to create this red carpet experience for our candidates. You don't want them to feel that, oh yeah, I cannot find a real person to discuss with. I don't want to discuss with Robert. How we are going to design this will be really important. Somehow we really want to think about the efficiency. That's why all the customer service now becoming robots or chatbot. For TA function, yeah, we want people to answer what's the status of the interview schedule, what's the feedback. It's no longer just one email saying, "Oh, we apologize, we cannot reply to you, but you will be you will receive the feedback within next 24 hours." That part, AI, yes. The other part, I will hope that AI can help our recruiter save time for our recruiter to create the real human touch with any candidates. But on the other side, connecting with this question, I'm thinking that whether AI can actually play an important role to help us, to help organization to prevent all the potential risks. For us, we do also have our own AI line. And for us, we do the eKYC part. Very crucial because every time when I have one final candidate, I want to do the reference check. I want to make sure that the 3 names on the list of the candidate, they are the real person. They are the real managers in that organization or colleagues in that organization or co-workers in that organization. I don't want just calling a random person, that person pretended to be the manager of someone. I think all of us, we have very similar concern or very similar experience. How we are going to use the facial recognition technology. So we don't even need to ask very unpleasant question. Can you make sure, are you the real Angelina? I don't need to ask you this question. Just open your phone, answer some question, have a talk with us, and we do facial recognition immediately. Confirm, yeah, that's the real Angelina herself. For organization, we do nothing. We pay a little bit, we get our purpose completed. That's how AI can play in the entire game.
Whilst I'm a big advocate of technological advancement and adoption of such technology to help us do our work better, I am also a firm believer that technology cannot, or AI cannot replace the human touch points. And also as a candidate, if I now I'm no longer from the people and culture team, I'm a candidate looking for a new opportunity. I love to talk to more people and interact and understand, because each of these human beings are going to tell me different things that I will try to find out, but they will also share different perspective, and I think that is so valuable. This is something that AI cannot replace, right? Because AI is the more inputs that you go in, the same output that you will come, and it will give you a standard answers, and that is not what we want. So I think from that perspective, gaining insights about the job, and for us, different interviewers, peers talking to the candidates, you get more things than just to put through one session. That will be the standard output that you will come out. So I think what we are trying to eliminate is to be too focus on the technology adoption, but forget that there are more important things that we should be looking out in. We don't have ideal candidate nowadays, but the most suitable candidate to bring in, which matches the DNA. So I doubt AI can replace us to have the kind of, again, finding the right candidate with the right DNA for the organization. Because even for us, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to articulate what is the right DNA for the organization. So for us to train the AI to do that is even more difficult. But maybe one day we will get there. But definitely for now, I'm still strongly believe in, having that touch points, and of course having that great employee experience, for all the candidates who come by to explore an opportunity with us.
Resonate with that personal touch note, Angelina. Definitely, I think no AI, no robot is able to replace that personal touch or connection that a recruiter can build, with a candidate along the process. But strongly believe, Dilip, in some of the points that you shared as well, in terms of giving more insight to the candidate, in terms of giving back. And one of the things that came to my mind was, identifying if a candidate is applying for a role in the example that you gave, identifying the skill gaps that a candidate has in order to achieve that particular role or the role that they aspire to be in. That's one element where potentially AI can come in and advise the candidate that's saying, hey, based on your profile, these are the few things you may want to hone, these are the few things that you may want to improve on, and relevant training courses or materials can accordingly be suggested by the use of AI, and information available on the public website as well. um, Now, given the insights we have heard on volume hiring and various elements involving AI, I would like to wrap up this discussion with one final question before opening up the floor to the audience to take any questions. What are your opinions on having an overall recruitment strategy in terms of the future of work that uses elements of either AI or does not use elements of AI? Are there certain parts of the process that you strongly believe, technology or other such tools could help? What would be some of the takeaways that you'd like to leave our audience with today, with that new recruitment strategy for the new world?
Technology is very much part of our recruitment process today. It isn't going anywhere. Probably it's going to get enhanced. We'll have more tools coming into the market. We'll be exploring more such options in future. But at the risk of sounding cliched, when the pandemic hit us, I think the entire world had issues with supply chain, and people in the recruitment business, we were also impacted. Right, the talent supply chain took a huge hit. We ended up paying huge price for hiring same skills, similar roles, similar experience, but at the same time, in the last 2 years, I've done close to TCS as an organization has onboarded close to 100,000 people. And within this region, we have done close to 10,000 plus. And that's something that we would not have imagined doing in 1 year. And we did that. And that was possible because we could quickly change to what was happening in the industry. We adopted some tools, techniques that we should have done. So, in my view, a very sound recruitment strategy for future where we're all heading towards is something that's going to be dependent on what is in and how agile are we. Are we able to quickly change and adopt to what's happening in the industry? At the same time, do I have insights? As a talent acquisition team, am I passing on the right insights to the business, to the staff, the larger staffing team, and what goes into my overall workforce plan to build talent for future? Because we're no longer looking at it as hiring for positions, hiring for roles. We're looking at building talent for future. I think that's going to be a very key element of the recruitment strategy, and that means that definitely means that you will have technology as a core member of this entire strategy.
I reckon that for us, I'm thinking about how in the coming months or even coming years, we can accumulate good quality of data. Then I can do proper data analytics. After that, I have clear idea who are the keepers who can survive, who will bring a lot of additional values to the organization. Then I can also give clear direction to whatever AI solution we are going to adopt. So far, if we stay with arrange all these interviews, we stay with machine selecting all these resumes, we stay at how the reference check will be conducted by AI, definitely can save us a lot of money, a lot of time, make our jobs more efficient, but it doesn't really touch the core part of the business. I'm also thinking that once we got very good quality of data analytics, how we can further leverage the AI and machine learning technology. I'm a believer. I think we can achieve something even bigger than today in our minds.
I think the whole strategy, I will break it down into a few parts. First is the talent attraction piece. I think the attraction piece, I've not found any AI which can help us. If anyone knows of anything, please, come and share with me. So I think we need to, at this time and age, right, we need to double down on talent attraction. It is just so important because you just can't rely on the brand name of the organization anymore. Even with an established brand, it doesn't mean that people will come and join you, because you're not sassy, in compared to other technology companies. So I think the more traditional your industry is, the more um, uh, traditional you're being, perceived, the more you need to double down on your attraction strategy. That's one. Secondly, when it comes to your acquisition is also important. But I always tell, the hiring managers that yes, we can, do a lot to help you attract, right? But if you do nothing to talent manage, to tell them what's their career path, you're going to lose people. And, every time you lose a person, right, I'm going to take a few more months, to help you bring the person in. So as just as talent acquisition attraction is important, your retention, your management is also important. So we should, at this point in time, try to retain as many employees as possible, value people. That's where your culture come in. You need to double down on your culture. You need to be able to tell people that, we value you, and this is why, you should not be lured by an 20% increase somewhere else. The compensation piece is important, because the real struggle today, when you look at it, is that you need to revamp your remuneration strategy, because people from the outside are demanding 15 to 20% increase, but your employees who have been reviewed, you've been reviewed for a long time, and every year on the average they get 3%. So what is more attractive? Definitely a jump. And when you try to bring in new people, people tell you, oh, then what about my existing employee who has been with us, for a long time? So you're always playing a catching up game. So you can have good strategy to attract, and all that. But if you're not able to manage the remuneration strategy, then it's going to be very, very difficult, because you're always catching your own tail, right? Okay, time's almost up. I'll try to quicken up. Yeah, so that piece I feel that is so important. But the other thing that I think a lot of companies have not looked at is the boomerang employees. And for an industry like ours, we always say that, oh, can we get people, who have worked with us before, they are good, and can we try to reach out and get them to come back? That means, do you have an alumni, club that you can capture all this? Because PDPA is going to be one of the biggest challenge in, you reaching out to your ex-employees. So you need to be able to form some sort of club within the organization, and since it's not managed externally, managed internally, and that is where it's going to be a good source of your potential, rehires. So I think boomerang employees is going to be increasingly an important pool. So for me, I will be focusing on all these things that I've mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the great insights. I think some interesting perspectives on recruitment strategy for the new world. Before we wrap up the session, happy to take. I guess we have probably time for one question from the audience. If someone could help us out with the mic in case anyone has the question.
First of all, thanks for great insight. And I agree to the fact that artificial intelligence will help us reduce the time to take decisions. Thinking from customer experience perspective, historically, people were applying on laptops or desktops for last 50 years. When I started growing up, I started applying on phones. And the latest trend is that AR, VR is going to be big, and metaverse is the place where my son plays in Roblox and things like that. In that context, I'm personally seeing a huge trend on augmented reality and virtual reality becoming the buzzword as well as discussion point. What is your or the panel's view on using augmented reality and virtual reality for improving customer experience?
Very interesting. Not something that we have explored in leaps and bounds, but something that I've tried very recently. We were hiring a technology specialist for an innovation hub that we call as Spaceport, which is strategically planted in few geographies. Now, this person was located in the US, and we had to give him a view of how Asia Pacific TCS works. So we used augmented reality as an option for that. And it was such a wonderful session that he was physically there in the US, but he was also present in a gathering like this that we have here in person. So not something that we have used as part of our tool for recruitment, but I think this might happen in future, right? It could probably be one of your ways of using for leadership hiring. I'm thinking now that you asked this, and we did this very recently. Probably if I'm hiring for C-suite roles, I would need to do this in future. It might just become a norm. That's my view. Not something that we have explored in detail. That's
My thought on this. On my way here, I was just discussing with our group head of TA, Gina. She's sitting there. We're talking about what else AI can help us to do. And we start to talk about how we are going to evaluate all these potential leadership competencies. Can we just use, it's quite popular already. We use gamification in a lot of areas in any organization. And I'm thinking that maybe we can connect with the augmented reality and maybe we can really test without really asking people to answer all these questions from their own behavior, how they interact, and if we can use such new technology for anyone who's even in a remote location or in a very relaxed and and like with all the spirit to play the entire thing. This kind of mode, we can have a better answer and we can use machine to give us a lot of clues, whether that's the right person to join, that's the right fit, or probably we need to rethink about it. So definitely a lot of potential.
and I think we're also working on something. We run the world's largest student coding contest called Code Vita. The recent edition that got over was on Metaverse. So we're trying to do that maybe in future, more of this across.
Maybe tomorrow, because you're mentioning about metaverse, we're talking about our own NFT project, all these things. We're thinking recruiters are also telling us, like managers, it's no longer the old age of hiring. If you want to get very niche areas of candidates, you really need to be more creative and you need to reach out. So for this kind of area, probably we're going to do maybe some forums, some workshop. We invite all these people who are interested in this to come. And if we can use such technology, our recruiters can join and we can very naturally figure out who are the go-to candidates and we can have a more targeted and more effective hiring as well.
Prashant is our SME.
Too much.
Yeah, no, I mean, just shedding some light on that as well. I think metaverse is really, really up and coming. We've seen some of the large technology providers where virtual meetings are happening as though it's in person, using augmented virtual reality and the like. So probably something that could, sort of enter into the recruitment space in time to come. But with that, I'd really like to thank our panelists for the insightful sharing today. Thank you so much for sharing, some of those amazing insights, with the audience and with us today.